Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Monster Hunter Wilds. This is targeted on getting you to understanding the things you're going to be interacting with the most during Wilds, because the campaign actually does a fantastic job of introducing you to a lot of things, but I'm going to try and give you some more nuance, some more details, and touch on things that they do not explain to make your early adventure in the Forbidden Lands super easy and smooth. So let's start with focus mode, because focus mode is one of the first things that Wilds introduces you to, which is why I want to give you a bit of a refresher, but also add some extra info that you may not have realized. Focus mode is activated by pressing L2 on controller, and hitting R1 whilst you have focus mode active will allow you to use your weapon's specific focus strike. This is a special move that can be done against monsters' wounds or weak points, which I'll explain more about weak points later. But focus mode is used for a lot more than just destroying wounds. Think of focus mode as your aiming mode, essentially. It allows you to turn your character to face any direction you want, so if you start an attack in the perfect position, but then a monster moves, you can use your focus mode to change the direction you're facing. Focus mode also gives you access to different attacks or different ways to access those attacks. I highly recommend checking out the training room whenever you can, just to have a bit of a play around with your chosen weapon, especially as you can talk to this Palico to change a ton of things about the training room, like allowing you to practice offset attack timings. The training room, just whenever you have time, pop in there and mess around with some stuff. Now let's touch on weak points. Weak points are created after a monster does an attack that leaves them open. For example, Chatakabra will create a weak point on his tongue after a big lick attack. Balahara will create a weak point after spitting at you, etc. Weak points will also glow red while you're in focus mode and when you use a focus strike on them. To take advantage of the small window in the monster's vulnerability, you will get them to topple over. Fun fact, you can use your field guide to see all of the monster's weak points so you can be prepared to take advantage the next time you fight them. Next, we're going to cover ways that you can use your mount Seikret in combat to greatly help you. Whenever you get knocked over, you can call Seikret with up on the D-pad and they will come and scoop you up. This gets you out of harm's way, and Seikret will auto-dodge some attacks whilst you're mounted. Now you're mounted, you can use this time to heal by selecting Optimal Healing on the Radial Menu. We will discuss the Radial Menu in more detail shortly, but Optimal Healing just picks the best healing for you based on the health that you're missing and the items that you have available. So this is a really easy way to heal. Highly recommend. You can also sharpen your melee weapon with a whetstone whilst mounted, which every single melee weapon will need to do when you see the sharpness bar go down. The last thing about Seikret that might be really easy to miss is Seikret's supply pouch. Every time you begin a quest to fight a monster, you'll hear Alma say, "I added some supplies to your Seikret's pouch." These can be accessed by getting on Seikret and pressing left on the D-pad. Everything on the bottom here is Seikret's pouch, which will have free things for you to take and use during the hunt. Always grab these because free stuff is nice. Next, let's talk about that Radial Menu. This is a way that you can access all of your most important items during combat without having to scroll through your item bar. You can see this by holding down L1 and then selecting what you want on the Radial Menu with your right stick. The default Radial Menu is pretty good. It's got your whetstone to sharpen your melee weapons, it's got optimal healing, optimal status removal, it's pretty much everything you will ever need as a brand new player. Here is my current Radial Menu. I did add a couple of things that will help during most combat situations, as well as a shortcut to photo mode, because we need to take a lot of pictures. If you want to edit your Radial Menu, you just head to the Customize Radial Menu option. You can put all sorts of things in here: healing items, buffs, coatings and ammo for ranged weapons, crafting, gestures, an easy to access pause button. You can really go crazy with this thing if you want to, but I don't expect you, if you are a brand new player, to mess around with this for quite a while if you just don't have an interest in messing around with it. The most important thing is that you know the Radial Menu exists and you know how to use it. So if you're in trouble, you can call your Seikret, get picked up, Seikret's auto dodge and moves for you, and then you can heal with optimal healing on your Radial Menu. Those two things are just going to make combat so much easier for you. Now let's talk about a huge part of combat that isn't explained very thoroughly in Wilds, and that's mounting a monster. In order to mount a monster, you have to use an attack that lands on top of a monster. Every single weapon has one of these attacks by jumping off of your mount Seikret and then pressing an attack. There are other ways to mount a monster, like Insect Glaive, for example, which can always be in the air. Damn near everything you do could potentially lead to a mount. Lots of weapons can also jump off of a little ledge in order to do an attack that ends in a mount. Try seeing what your weapon can do in the training grounds to see what moves end with you landing on top of the monster. Now, you won't mount a monster every single time you do one of these mounting attacks because that would be incredibly overpowered. That's because the way that mounting is calculated. So think of every monster as having a gauge that you fill up by doing mounting attacks. And when reaching the max of that gauge, you will then mount the monster successfully. Now, after you've mounted one time, that gauge can fill up again, but it's gonna fill up a lot less quickly. On average, I've seen it take about 3 jumps off of Seikret to mount a monster for the first time. Now let's go over what your options are after mounting a monster. Attacking with R1 to use your equipped weapon seems to create a wound faster, but appears to make the mount last less time. You can tell about how much time you have left on the mount by this icon right here, at which point the monster will just topple over, and you won't get to do your super cool move. It will start off by glowing blue at the beginning of the mount, then yellow, and then red when it's at the end of the mount. I recommend using the weapon attack if you just want to create a wound ASAP to use your finishing move and get on with the hunt. Then you have Strong Knife Attack. Strong Knife Attack is a harder hitting but slower knife attack. You can use the Strong Knife Attack when the monster isn't trying to throw you off. To tell when a monster is trying to get you off of them, you'll see a monster thrashing around and the icon I showed you earlier will flash red. When that is not happening, you're good to use the Strong Knife Attack. Now, if the monster is trying to throw you off, this is when you want to use the Weak Knife Attack because you can actually use this attack whilst holding R2 to brace. Bracing makes you lose less stamina when the monster is thrashing about, which will prolong your mount because if you do run out of stamina, you fall off of the monster. Make sure to move around the monster's body if it looks like they're going to smack you into a wall, or if Balahar is trying to spit at you. If it looks like they're doing an attack that can reach where you currently are on the monster, go to a different part of their body and start stabbing away. So what I recommend you do when you do get a mount is I recommend moving between the monster's body parts, hitting Strong Knife Attack and Weak Knife Attack when you need to brace, creating multiple wounds on the monster's body. Keep an eye out on the mount icon that we talked about earlier, and if it looks like you're reaching the end of the mount, use your mount finisher with R1 to destroy one of the wounds that you have created. Please be aware that you can only use the mount finisher on top of a wound. Those other wounds that you created during your mount will now stick around for you to take advantage of for the rest of the hunt, which is awesome. Now let's talk about crafting, because Wilds does some pretty cool stuff. Playing through the campaign will teach you the basics of crafting, so here I want to talk to you about wish listing, using the monster field guide to assist you in your crafting endeavors and crafting via the wish list. When you want to craft a new weapon or piece of armor, but you don't have the required materials, you can add it to your wish list. After the gear has been added, you can go to your wish list and see a list of materials needed. And in the case of needing a material found in the wilds and not from these large monsters, it will tell you where you can find that material. But that's not all. Using the monster field guide, you can find out exactly what you need to do when hunting your target monster to obtain the material you need to craft the gear you want. Head into the large monster field guide and you'll see all of the large monsters that you've encountered on your journey so far. On the icon of the monster that you need to hunt to obtain the materials for the gear that you've added to your wish list, you'll see a little pin. This pin is a super easy way to tell which monsters you need to hunt for the required materials. If you go into the details of the monster, you can see a ton of information. I recommend looking through these in your own time, but we are looking for the obtainable details section. You'll see a pin next to the material you need, which tells you what part of the monster you should target to obtain that reward. Then, if you look at the list of obtainable materials and navigate to your wish listed material indicated again by a pin, you'll be able to see the exact percentages for the drop chance of that material as a target reward, broken part rewards, carving rewards, etc. So let's take this Lalabarina as an example. I need a Lalabarina claw. I can see that I have an 11% chance to just get one by completing the hunt and 15% from carving. However, if I break the right and left claw, I have a 100% chance of getting a claw. So I now know that I need to focus on her claws to guarantee I get the materials that I need. After you've obtained the materials that you need, you can head to Gemma and choose the option Forge from Wishlist, which will just show you the pieces of gear you have wishlisted. This makes target farming for things you need so easy, and forging from wishlist is an incredible feature, so you don't have to try and find the stuff that you wishlisted in a massive list of things. Next, let's talk about gathering materials as well as discovering new crafting recipes. We have a term in Monster Hunter, and it's always be gathering because you need most things at some point during your adventures. So, grabbing absolutely everything you come across is never a bad idea, especially with the damn near unlimited storage space. Gathering is also easier than ever due to being able to gather from your Seikret by either pointing the camera directly at the item and pressing circle, or aiming your slinger with L2 and cycling through nearby gatherables with the up and down D-pad, followed by circle to grab the item that you want from range with your slinger. This is super easy to just grab as much as you can as you're traveling around the wilds. You put Seikret into auto mode and you just look around with your left trigger held down and moving the D-pad around, grabbing absolutely everything you can. Now, a big reason you may want to grab everything you see, at least to begin with, is so you can fill out your crafting list. In your crafting list, you will see all of the things that you can craft with the items in your item box, such as important things like potions. But you'll also see these question marks throughout your crafting list. These are things that you haven't discovered yet. In order to discover them and have the item added to your crafting list, you need to find the two materials needed in order to craft it. This is where it becomes super helpful to have a bunch of things in your item box already because you're just naturally filling this out by just playing the game. Now let's briefly touch on cooking as well as ways within the early game to gather more ingredients to cook with. Eating gives you more health, more stamina, as well as some extra perks to help you in your hunts. After you've eaten a meal, you'll see on the right hand side how long your food buff will last. When that buff runs out is when you're going to want to eat again. You can check how long you have left on your food by holding down L1 at any time, and right above your health bar, there's going to be a timer right there. That's how long your buff has left. You can also see this by heading into your camp or opening up your grill in the wild. And on the right hand side, it will show you again how long you have left on your food buff. But if you do happen to head out into a hunt and you haven't eaten and your health is low and your stamina is low, do not worry, because you can just whip out your grill whenever you want to prepare yourself a meal. Or if you're in the thick of combat when you realize you haven't eaten, which will be obvious again to your lower health and lower stamina bar, you can eat a well-done steak to boost your max health and stamina, as well as heal you, just in case you ever run out of healing potions and need a way to heal yourself. Please do note that you do have to progress the story a teeny bit in order to unlock your portable grill. Now, you can always cook a meal using rations, which Tom the Canteen Palico will deliver you shipments of throughout the game, but this will just increase your health, stamina, and give you a small attack boost. So, what you're really going to want to do is to get some ingredients that will not only boost your stats, but also give you extra benefits. Here's some early game ingredients you can get that should really help you out. Raw meat gives you the same effect as rations, but using raw meat instead of just rations will allow you to add other ingredients to cook. Raw meat can be obtained from any of these large monsters roaming around. Fish you can of course obtain from fishing, which will give you some extra defense, and then veggies will give you some extra defense and elemental defense. Kunafa cheese will give you a skill called Defender Meal, which will sometimes decrease the damage you take. You can obtain this very early in the game by trading with a villager in Kunafa Village directly after the trading tutorial in-game. If you ever want to see if someone is able to trade with you, there is an actual trading icon on the map, and you can just look and see if someone is there to trade with. Eastern honey will increase the amount of health you recover when healing. I've personally managed to find this from vigor wasps, especially giant vigor wasps, and from sparkling honey gathering points around Kangalala's home in the Scarlet Forest. This should give you a really great foundation of buffs for your early game, and you'll always be unlocking more options from all over this game to add to your ingredients repertoire. So get out there, enjoy hunting for new ingredients. Eventually, I'll have a video on absolutely everything, but these are the super early, just important stuff that will really help you out. Now let's go over some ways you can use your map to make traveling around easier, as well as finding what you want to gather easier. Bringing up your map will show you a transparent map of your current locale. Make this full screen if you want to see things a little bit easier. On the bottom left, you'll see an icon. Press left or right on the D-pad to bring up icons you can interact with. The first is a list of all fast travel locations. The second icon will show you all of the things that you can interact with on the map, from animals, endemic life, gathering points, traps, all sorts of stuff. To further narrow down this list, you can press triangle to apply a filter. Now, if you select the gathering filter, we are shown every single thing that we can pick up. From here, you can use the D-pad to cycle through the ones available on the map, and then select a waypoint. Boom! Your Seikret can now take you directly there. Auto, you can take your hands off the wheel, have a snack, and you will get to the material that you want to gather. Let's now touch on how to play with friends, because this can be a little confusing. The best way to play with a friend is to invite them to your link party. This will allow you to join each other's quests super easily and invite each other to go exploring. Bring up your menu, head to the Invite to Link Party. From here, you can invite your Steam, PlayStation, or Xbox friends. Another way that you can invite people is via their Hunter ID search. Side note, after you have found their Hunter ID, it would be great if you just add them as friends, because Monster Hunter Wilds has an actual individual in-game friends list. So you can play cross-play with all of your friends and stuff. So get their Hunter ID and just add them to your friends list. To find your Hunter ID, you can tell your friends this, or you can give them your Hunter ID. You just have to go to the members list, and you can see it in the lobby section. You can see it in your link party section. It's all over the place. It's just a number that identifies you, but this is how you find it to hand out to your friends or get it from your friends. Once you are in the link party together, it does not matter what any of you do. You are always connected in the background. Timmy can be gathering, Tommy can be fishing, you could be doing a quest, someone else could be doing an endgame final monster hunt. You're always connected. Now you are free to post a quest by talking to Alma or selecting post quest from your tent, and it will notify everyone in your link party that there is a new quest that they can join. Now, if you want to explore the wilds together to go fishing and roasting marshmallows or hunting roaming monsters, you simply press Invite Link Party to Environment Link. This syncs you into the same open world state so that you can see each other. Please do note that if you want to post a quest via Alma or your tent, such as optional quests or assigned quests, while you have the environmental link active, you'll have to end the environment link. But don't worry, ending the environment link will still keep you in a link party together. I know this can be confusing, even when I'm just explaining it, but I promise the first time you do it, it will just make sense. But just think of link party is how you take on quests together, and environmental link is how you explore the open world together. Finally, let's go over some settings that I recommend. There are an insane amount of settings that you can mess around with to find your ideal settings, but these are the ones that I find to be the most generally important. First up is how damage numbers are displayed. You can choose to have damage numbers rounded up to whole values, have the numbers with decimals for specific damage testing, or have them off entirely. Next, we're going to move on to Seikret options, because you might find yourself being like, son of a, this Seikret is always moving and I don't want it to be moving. So one of those Seikret options is to turn Seikret Auto Explore off, so they don't just start wandering off without a target selected for them. And then change Seikret manual controls to type 2, which makes it feel more similar to controlling your hunter. Now let's get you to turn off auto sheath. You do not need the game to automatically put your weapon away if you haven't used it recently. In my opinion, it just feels better to have full control over what my character is doing, and if I want to take a super cute picture with my weapon out, I don't want the game putting my weapon away. Then we have a big one, which is focus mode being hold to use or toggle. You can even select these to be different for ranged weapons versus melee. I personally set ranged weapons to hold and melee weapons to toggle because when I'm using Insight Glaive, for example, and I want to just always be attacking with my Kinsect, that happens during focus mode. And I don't want to have to hold that and also press the other 17 buttons I have to do with Insect Glaive. So I really do like toggle for melee weapons. Then we have camera zoom. I just want you to know that there's a slider for that. You can make it have a wider FOV. And if you are on PC with a controller, you can choose the controller button icons to match the controller that you are using. Finally, I want to point out some settings that enable you to completely control your hunting experience when you have NPC hunters with you. You can choose to prevent them from doing a ton of actions during hunts, such as disabling mounting or clash attacks, offset attacks, etc. This just means that you will be the only person who can perform those actions during a hunt. Because as we talked about at the beginning of the video, if a mount happens, you're not going to be able to mount again right away. It's going to take a little bit. So if an NPC mounts, you're not going to be able to then mount the monster yourself for a little bit. So turn that off, and you will be the only one that's able to mount. This will allow you to truly feel like you are the main character, even when you're playing with NPC hunters. However, if I, as a bow main, wanted to use NPC hunters, I would allow them to do offset attacks and clash attacks because I can't do that with my weapon. So you can really pick and choose this to make an experience that's perfect for what you want. And that is it for our super duper beginner's guide. Honestly, the campaign through Wilds really explains a lot of stuff to you. So as long as you're listening to what people are saying in the game and you're reading any pop-up that comes up, they do introduce stuff to you very slowly, a reasonable pace so you don't get overwhelmed, and they explain a lot. But these were some things that I wanted to really touch on in detail or go over when they didn't explain it really at all. So I hope that this makes your beginning adventure in Monster Hunter Wilds a little bit more smooth. If you did enjoy the video, please leave it a like. We will of course be having Wilds videos up every damn day. We're going to be streaming every day, so if you have any further questions, please feel free to stop by the stream and ask away. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!